post-graduation in Botany from 𝐊𝐵𝐭𝐬𝐻 College, Kolkata in 2023. I have a 3-year work experience in private tutoring and nearby coaching institutions. I am also from West Bengal, Kolkata. So today we'll take up a very interesting yet simple topic which is quite confusing to a lot of students. It is absorption by roots. I'll just do a brief about what I'll be teaching today. The confusing terms are imbibition, diffusion, osmosis, tonicity, brief about plasmolysis. We know that roots take up water from the soil as well as minerals and nutrients, whatever they need. Pardon. The other function which root has is support. So let's see how they do, how they support the plant. The thing is, needing water has a few functions. One is photosynthesis. Plants need water to photosynthesize their food. Photosynthesis. Mechanical strength. This is actually what I'm talking about when I say support. We'll check that later. Mechanical strength. Transportation of sugar or food molecules from the roots, from the phloem to the rest of the plant. In that process also water is required. Transportation and transpiration. Transpiration is basically, you can consider at your homes, the people who have flats or maybe they have houses as well. You'll see the pump, water pump, which you switch it on. Water pump has this technology of pulling water from the soil, and it helps, the motor helps to help the water to reach every flat or every room of the house. Let's consider. What is it? It is actually a pull from the soil. That is what the plant also does. Transpiration is mainly that. Transpiration is a pull. What is transpiration? When water is uptaken from the soil, it moves to the leaf. From the leaf, it gets out into the air. The excess water is released into the air as moisture or water vapor. That is known as transpiration. And when that pull is there, you'll obviously take up water from the soil if a pull is there from the top. Okay. So that is transpiration. Transportation is when you when you move water from one place to another with the help of energy. That is transportation of maybe either sugar or water. It does not matter. Transportation. Mechanical strength is by turgidity. We'll come back to that. Photosynthesis, I told you. Now we come to the main parts. Imbibition. I'm sure while it's a rainy season, whenever rainy seasons come, people who have windows and doors which are made up of wood, I'm sure many of you have seen that the doors and windows, they do not lock properly. They do not get fit into the frame. The reason is imbibition. Why? Because the substances which are made up of cellulose and protein, for example wooden doors, they are made up of cellulose. Why? Because the plant cell wall is made up of cellulose. And what is wood? It is basically plant fiber. Plant cells, those are dead cells. Even if they are dead cells, they are made up of cellulose. So the wood surface, it starts to absorb moisture, it starts to absorb water, and therefore they start to swell up. If this is a cell, it takes up water on the surface. On the surface they take up water. And what happens? It swells. So when it swells, you will naturally see the door, it has a frame, it will not fit into the frame. The reason is imbibition. Done. So we can say that imbibition is the absorption of water or moisture onto the surface of any substance which is made up of cellulose or proteins. Because proteins are hydrophilic in nature, cellulose is also hydrophilic in nature, therefore they tend to take up water. So roots first have this process known as imbibition, which happens on the root epidermal cells. Diffusion. Let's know the definition. Diffusion is basically the movement of solute as well as solvent molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of low concentration. Remember, it might either be solute or solvent. It is not always either one of them. And it may also have a membrane. It does not matter whether it has a semi-permeable membrane or it does not have a semi-permeable membrane. That is the confusion area. So we'll see, diffusion is movement, solute or solvent, from high to low in any cases, and it may have membrane, permeable or semi-permeable, with or without this diffusion will occur. It is a process. Okay, it is a process. A very easy example is, let's see it over here. You can try this as at home as well. I hope I'm visible. If you put a drop of water, look at the color dissolving, look at the color going. This is diffusion. Color from this region, from the concentrated region, is mixing into the water. It is moving inside the water. After some time, you'll see the whole water has changed its color. Depending on the amount of color you're putting, the water will change color. Okay. If you put less amount of color, you won't be able to see the color as well in the water. I'll show you in the end of the video how much it has changed. So this is diffusion. You can even try this at home. It's quite interesting. Now let's see what is osmosis. Osmosis is the movement of solvent, that is only water, from a region of its higher concentration to a region of its lower concentration, and it is mandatorily going to have a semi-permeable membrane. Usko semi-permeable membrane se hi jana hai. Like it's going to go through that only. Solute is not going to be allowed through a semi-permeable membrane, only the solvent, that is the water, and therefore that is osmosis. That is the basic definition. Solute won't go and it has to have a semi-permeable membrane, but it is a diffusion process only. It is also the movement of solvent from one higher concentrated region to a low concentrated region, but it is a solvent only that is moving through a semi-permeable membrane, not the solute. If we see it in a diagram, for example, this is the semi-permeable membrane that I have zoomed in. These are the pores. You have solute molecules over here, and you have solvent molecules over here, that is water. So we'll consider this is water and this is glucose solution. Clear? Water will move from this region to this region, not from this to this. No, because I have told movement of water or solvent molecules from its higher to its lower concentration. Over here, water is in higher quantity, in higher concentration than over here. So what will happen? It's going to move through this. It's going to move through this, through this, through this. Solute won't be able to fit into this pore. That is a very basic thing we can see. The pore is not so big to move, fit into a fit a solute inside it, so it won't move. This is called osmosis. Let's see what happens in roots now. In a root, I'm sure you have drawn these diagrams where you have drawn something like this. This is a root. You've drawn these appendages from it. These are roots as well. These are multicellular as well. But this is unicellular. That is known as a root head. Root hairs are single cellular structures. It's going to have a structure like this. It's going to have a cell wall, obviously. It's going to have a nucleus, it's going to have a cytoplasm, it's going to have a vacuole. These all things are there. First, what happens is water is taken up by the surface of the root via this process, imbibition. Then what happens after the surface of the root has taken water, because it is made up of cellulose and protein components, so they are hydrophilic. After it moves inside, like after it has been absorbed by the cell surface, it moves inside, it diffuses inside. But diffusion is a process, so we will not say that diffusion is occurring only. We will say osmosis is occurring, because in osmosis diffusion is occurring as well. That is a process. It's actually which is this is actually the process which is occurring. Osmosis occurs, water enters into the cell. The cell membrane, the cell has a cell membrane, that is the semi-permeable membrane for the water to get into. The water moves inside. Concentration of cell sap inside is more than the concentration of water inside the cell sap is less than the concentration of water outside. So water moves inside, and this is how the water travels. Osmosis occurs from one cell to the other. It moves into the cortex, and this is how the water transports. This is known as osmosis. This is very simple. You don't have to think about it any further again. Okay? Now comes tonicity. Tonicity is, I'll talk about the definition later. Let's see the three conditions that we have in tonicity. Hypertonic, hypotonic, isotonic. In hypertonic, we have a jar, there is water, and there is a cell. In hypertonic, we see the concentration of the solution. In this solution, we have, for example, glucose. The glucose concentration of the solution is much higher than what is present inside. In other words, water is present in very less amount. H2O is present in very less amount compared to the insides of the cell. So what happens is, water comes outside. We have learned water comes from a region of high to low concentration, anything, solute or solvent. So water comes out. What will happen to the cell is going to shrink. This is known as the hypertonic condition. The solution, hypertonic condition, where the cell gets shrunk. We can call this condition as plasmolysis as well. Plasmolysis, which is the fifth topic. Plasmolysis is basically when water from inside moves outside, the condition of the cell that is occurring, that is known as plasmolysis. Okay. So that's a brief. Let's come to the hypotonic thing. Outside, water is present in more amounts than is present inside. What will happen? Water will move inside. Therefore, what the cell would undergo is, it's going to swell up. Okay? This condition is known as turgidity. Turgidity matlab the swelling up of the cell, the pressure that the water creates inside and the cell swells up, that condition is known as turgidity. Turgid or rigid, you can talk. This turgidity is what helps the plants in getting mechanical strength. Okay? So we had talked about it in the first of the class. That is what I am talking about. Mechanical strength. Now is isotonic. Water present outside and water present inside, both are in same equal amounts. So there is going to be no movement. No movement is going to happen. Neither will water get inside nor will water come outside. So the condition of the cell will be same. That is called isotonic. How to remember this? Hyper ka matlab is more. That is with respect to solvent. Okay. Just consider in the solution, in the solvent, we know over here glucose concentration zyada hai. So hyper. In hypo, that is less. In this solution, glucose concentration is less. Or we can consider यहाँ पे solute concentration is more, solute is more, solute is less. In isotonic, same. Solute outside and inside both are same. If you try to like correlate it with water levels, it's going to be a little tough for you to understand, since H2 rising is not going to be less. Okay, so better not consider it with water, consider it with the solute. Okay, now we can say that tonicity is a relative concentration of solvent which determines the extent and direction of diffusion of the solvent. Okay. Okay, so let's recap what we have studied. First is imbibition, that is the consider now the root. Okay, since we are studying about roots, let's not consider any example. It's quite easy to understand. Root hair. Okay, so root hair first imbibes water. What is imbibition? Then the surface absorption of water onto the surface of the cell is known as imbibition. Water is first taken up in that way by the root hair cell. Then comes diffusion. Diffusion is a process, that is movement of solute or solvent from a region of higher to lower concentration. Diffusion, that is high to low. Solute or solvent does not matter with or without a semi-permeable membrane. Osmosis is the process which is occurring. Why? Because we are taking up water and the cell membrane is partially going to be allowing molecules from the soil. So that's a semi-permeable membrane. So what is happening? Osmosis is happening. Osmosis is basically movement of solvent, or diffusion, we can call it a diffusion part as well. Movement of solvent or only water from a region of high to low concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. That is the difference between them. Okay. Now comes tonicity. In tonicity we have seen the three conditions that we have seen, 1, 2 and 3, hyper, hypo and iso. Hyper is we have solute concentration more outside. Outside solute concentration is more. Water inside is more than what is present outside, so water will come out. What happens? The cell shrinks. That is hypertonic solution. Hypotonic solution, solute concentration is less. Solute concentration is less. We have a cell. The water concentration is higher outside. So what happens is water moves inside. What happens to the cell? The cell gets increased. That is hypotonic solution. Iso means same. So the outside concentration of solute and inside concentration of solute both are same. So water is also the same. Therefore water neither moves nor comes out. That is iso. The cell will remain in its original shape. Now plasmolysis is basically this condition. This is basically when the cell contents shrink. That is known as plasmolysis. Let's see. I hope I am visible. This is a cell. This is a cell. These are the cells which are in normal condition, and when it is placed in a hypertonic solution, it is going to look like this. The cell contents are going to shrink. The cell membrane and the cell contents are going to shrink. This is what is going to look like. But we have seen, hold on a minute. This is the cell wall, okay? It does not shrink because it is made up of cellulose. So it is quite rigid. It's not going to shrink. Only the cell membrane is going to shrink. If it occurs with an animal cell, the whole cell will shrink, obviously, because it does not have any supporting cell thing, or supporting cell wall. It does not have. Okay. The next we will see is this diagram. This is very common in many biology textbooks of class 10. This is the cell wall. This is the turgor pressure. Okay. The turgidity, when the cell is in a hypotonic solution, it becomes turgid because water is moving inside. So it gives a pressure to the cell wall. The wall itself also gives a pressure to the inside so that the cell does not burst. Osmotic pressure is something which we will study tomorrow. For today, we are going to stop over here. So I want all of you to kindly go through all of these topics that I have studied today. We have studied all today. Plasmolysis I am going to teach in a more better way in the next class. Please jot down your doubts or anything you have. We'll take it up in the first the next session. So This is it for today. Thank you so much.